Have you ever heard a story and thought, wow, that's wild, but then something just felt a little bit off?
Happens all the time.
Yeah, well, today on this deep dive, we're looking at a case from the early 1800s.
Mm.
A story that captivated England about a mysterious woman known as Princess Caribou.
Sounds interesting.
It really is. So before the internet or even, widespread literacy,
Right, right.
news traveled by word of mouth and a captivating story could really spread like wildfire.
Yeah, I bet.
Our main sources for this deep dive come from contemporary newspaper accounts,
Okay,
court transcripts, and a handful of historical biographies.
makes sense.
So we're going to try to piece together the truth behind this incredible tale.
All right, ready.
So let's set the scene. England, 1817, a time when tales of distant lands and exotic cultures
Yeah,
really captured the public imagination.
for sure.
So picture this, a small village near Bristol called Almondsbury.
Okay.
A stranger arrives, a woman dressed in unusual clothing, speaking a language no one understands.
Whoa, a real mystery.
She's taken in by well-meaning townsfolk who are completely captivated by her story.
Oh, I bet.
This woman's name is Mary Wilcox, but she will soon become known as Princess Caribou.
Okay.
So what do our sources say about her arrival?
Well, they paint a vivid picture of this woman as looking completely out of place.
Right.
With her striking appearance and strange mannerisms.
Yeah.
They even say that experts couldn't decipher her language.
I can imagine.
It just added to the whole mystique surrounding her.
So how does Mary Wilcox, this mysterious woman, transform into Princess Caribou?
Well, she finds a champion in a woman named Elizabeth Worrell.
Okay.
Elizabeth is a member of a very prominent family in the area,
Uh-huh.
and she kind of takes Mary under her wing, provides her with shelter, and, maybe more importantly, a platform
Oh, yeah.
to kind of get her story out there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So with Elizabeth's help, Mary's tale starts to spread, and she begins to take on this new identity.
So it sounds like the Worrell family played a significant role in promoting her story. Why do you think they were so invested in this mysterious woman?
It's a good question. There were definitely a few factors at play.
Okay.
Samuel Worrell, Elizabeth's husband, he was in the process of establishing a bank,
Yeah.
and he really needed to, cultivate this image of respectability and influence.
I see.
A royal visitor, even one from an unknown island, that could really boost his standing in the community.
I can see that.
So hosting Princess Caribou became a way for the Worrells to, elevate their social status and attract attention.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like a publicity stunt, you could say.
I mean, it was a different time.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like both Mary and the Worrells had something to gain from this arrangement.
You got it.
She needed shelter and a platform, and they needed the social capital that, a princess, even a mysterious one, could provide.
Right.
But it wasn't just their support that helped her story gain traction.
No.
Mary, or I should say Princess Caribou,
Right.
she starts to exhibit all these exotic behaviors that really convince people of her authenticity.
It's fascinating how these behaviors, they seem bizarre to us today, but they were actually quite effective in convincing people back then.
Give me an example.
Well, she had specific rituals around food.
Right.
She wore very unique clothing, even claimed to have her own writing system.
Really?
The language of Javasu, she called it.
So what stands out to you as particularly outlandish about these performances?
I'd say the one that really gets me is her alleged ritual of sacrificing pigeons
Whoa.
and then bathing in their blood.
Like what?
I know it sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
But in a time when knowledge of foreign cultures was very limited, these kinds of rituals actually reinforced existing stereotypes about the primitive or uncivilized nature of non-European societies.
So she was playing into their preconceived notions.
Absolutely. She gave people exactly what they expected to see.
Wow.
And it worked.
It's like she was a character from a travelogue come to life.
Yeah, you could say that.
But as with any good performance, there's always a critic waiting in the wings. And in this case, it's a Dr. Wilkinson who steps in to investigate.
Now, Dr. Wilkinson, he's considered a polymath,
Okay.
a man of wide-ranging knowledge and expertise.
Oh, wow.
So he's tasked with uncovering the truth about Princess Caribou. And here's where the story gets even more interesting.
Oh, really? So did he expose her as a fraud right away?
Well, not quite. In fact, some of his findings actually seem to support Caribou's claims.
Really?
Yeah, he believed he had identified her language as originating from Sumatra and even attributed the scars on her head to some kind of Indonesian ritual.
So even an expert like Dr. Wilkinson was taken in by her story.
It seems so.
It makes you wonder if maybe he wanted to believe her.
It's possible maybe he was just as captivated by the mystery as everyone else.
Yeah.
But as they say, the truth has a way of coming out.
And in this case, it came in the form of a Mrs. Neal.
That's right. Mrs. Neal's appearance changes everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mrs. Neal, she had actually met Mary Wilcox before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at a boarding house she used to run. And when she saw Caribou, she recognized her right away.
Wow, what a moment that must have been.
It was a complete shock for everyone.
I can only imagine the fallout.
Oh yeah, the Worrells especially, they faced a lot of ridicule.
Rightfully so.
The sources even say that Samuel Worrell's bank collapsed after the truth came out.
Really?
It really damaged their reputation. You know, they were seen as gullible and easily manipulated.
I mean, they kind of were, weren't they?
You could say that, but it's interesting to think about what this whole episode says about society at the time.
What do you mean?
Well, think about it. This was a period of great change and upheaval in England.
Okay.
You know, the Napoleonic Wars had just ended.
Right.
And the country was in the midst of its colonial expansion.
There's a lot going on.
Definitely. And all of that created a sense of anxiety and uncertainty, but also a growing fascination with the unknown.
So maybe Caribou's story was a welcome distraction from all the real-world problems.
Exactly. It was a chance to escape into a world of fantasy and intrigue.
And you were saying earlier how travelogues were really popular during this time.
Oh, yeah. People were obsessed with tales of faraway lands and exotic cultures.
So Caribou's story just played right into that fascination.
Perfectly.
It's like she was a product of her time.
You got it. She knew exactly what people wanted to hear and see.
But surely some people saw through her charade, right?
Oh, yeah. There were definitely skeptics.
Like who?
There's this one story about a Greek valet who was suspicious of Caribou from the start.
Interesting.
Yeah, he even tried to expose her by shouting fire to see if she would react in her supposed native tongue.
Clever thinking.
But it didn't work. Caribou was too good. She could adapt her performance to suit any audience.
She was like a master manipulator.
Pretty much.
But we can't forget about the role of the media in all of this.
True, the newspapers played a huge role in shaping public perception of Princess Caribou.
How so?
Well, they presented her as this tragic figure, a princess robbed of her kingdom.
Oh, the poor princess.
Exactly, and that really fueled public sympathy and fascination.
It's amazing how the media can control the narrative.
It's powerful stuff, and what's even more interesting is how quickly they turned on her once the truth came out.
Yeah, they went from praising her to ridiculing her practically overnight.
Classic case of public opinion shifting on a dime.
So we've got societal anxieties, media manipulation, individual desires.
Right?
It's like the perfect storm for Caribou's deception to thrive.
That's a good way to put it.
But now I'm really curious about Mary Wilcox herself.
Yeah.
What drove her to create this elaborate persona in the first place?
To understand that, we need to delve into her backstory.
Right, let's do it.
It's really a fascinating story.
It is, yeah. Let's get into it.
Okay, so before she was Caribou, Mary's life was pretty tough.
In what way?
Well, she grew up poor, and then as a teenager, she got really sick with rheumatic fever.
Oh, wow, that's rough.
It was. And, you
Yeah.
know, back then there weren't really effective treatments.
Right.
So she might have had some, lasting health problems because of it.
That's really sad. It makes you wonder if those early struggles played a role in, her later choices.
It's hard to say for sure, but there are some interesting patterns in her life before she became Princess Caribou.
Like what?
Well, for one, she worked as a nursemaid for a while.
Okay.
And then she even lived with a Romani family for a bit.
Really?
Yeah, and she even snuck into a Jewish wedding once.
Wow, she got around.
She did, and she also spent some time at a Magdalene hospital.
A Magdalene hospital. What's that?
They were institutions for, fallen women back then.
Oh, I see.
So she had all these different experiences that exposed her to different cultures and ways of life.
That's pretty remarkable considering the time period.
It is, and, looking back, it seems like all these experiences gave her the skills and knowledge she needed to create this believable persona.
Like she was subconsciously preparing for her role as Princess Caribou.
Yeah, it's like all the pieces were falling into place.
So she had the skills, but what about the motivation?
Right, what drove her to do it?
Was it just a desire for fame and fortune, or was there something deeper going on?
Well, the sources definitely hint at a troubled past, poverty, health issues.
Yeah.
Maybe she just wanted to escape that reality.
Create a world where she was in control.
Exactly. She could be anyone she wanted to be as Princess Caribou.
It's a powerful reminder that everyone has their own story.
Absolutely. And sometimes those stories are more complicated than they seem.
So what happened to Mary Wilcox after her true identity was revealed?
Well, she actually tried to capitalize on her fame for a little bit.
Oh, really?
She worked as a sideshow act for a while, like a curiosity.
I can see that.
But then she made a pretty surprising decision.
What was that?
She changed her name, got married, and settled into a seemingly normal life.
Wow. So she really tried to leave her past behind.
It seems like it, but her story doesn't end there.
Oh, there's more.
Yeah, get this. She became a leech seller.
A leech seller, like for medical purposes.
Exactly. She supplied leeches to hospitals.
That's a wild turn of events.
It is right from princess to leech seller.
It makes you wonder if there's some deeper meaning there.
I think so. Leeching was a legitimate medical practice back then.
Yeah.
But it also had this kind of dark side, associated with blood and pain.
Right.
It's almost like Mary, having lived this fantasy life, she found some kind of solace in a profession that dealt with the messy reality of the human body.
That's a really interesting interpretation.
And, it just goes to show that life can take some pretty unexpected turns.
It sure can.
Mary Wilcox's story is full of twists and turns.
Absolutely.
It makes you think about truth identity, the stories we tell ourselves, and the stories we choose to believe.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah,
This has been a truly captivating deep dive into the story of Princess Caribou.
I agree.
Thank you all for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to The Deep Dive for more fascinating stories from history, science, and beyond.